run, he says. Well, good morning, everybody. How are you today?
Good morning.
Good, beautiful. All right, so I want to begin by welcoming our Facebook Live family. As you should know by now, we are Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Boston, right?
Yes.
Yay! And we're glad to be here at 50 Dudley Street in Cambridge, Massachusetts on a cool Cambridge morning. But not as cool as it could be sometimes in February, right? So we're going to enjoy that. So I'm Rev G. Stewart, and I, along with Reverend Tansy, are privileged to be the co-spiritual leaders and founders of this amazing and wonderful community here, where we learn how to transform our minds into creating the lives that we want to experience, right?
Yes.
That's what we're here for, is to get that going. So in this community, we learn to practice the science of mind philosophy, which is the study of life and the nature of the laws of thought. It is also metaphysics and all of those wonderful new thought teachings that are so embraced by all of us. So we invite you to our wonderful website at cslboston.org, where you can find out more about our center, about how we can be of service to you, or you can be of service to us. And we welcome you to actually join us here at 50 Dudley Street. I know some of you at home are coming in from Canada and all kinds of other wonderful places, and we're so grateful to have you with us via live stream on our Facebook feed. So, but if you are receiving your spiritual food from our message, we welcome you to go to our site where you can make a contribution, a tax-deductible contribution to this amazing organization, and keep it alive and well here in Cambridge, because that's what we need in Massachusetts. We need lots of centers everywhere, just like Colorado and California and Florida, right?
Right.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we're building, is that consciousness. So I want to begin with, you have the clicker, sir? Oh, thank you, sir. So I want to begin with our CSL theme, which is spirituality in action. That is our annual theme. And of course, our February theme is oneness, I seek the common good. And today's message is understanding our interdependence. You know, the common good is what we're talking about in this month of February, so we need to understand our interdependence. Would you agree?
Yes.
All right. So, is it possible that by understanding our interdependence, that we are also seeking our common good, which then leads us to recognizing our oneness? Did we all get that? Let me say it again. Is it possible by understanding our interdependence that we are also seeking our common good, which leads us to recognizing our oneness? Yes, it does, right? So it seems like a no-brainer, right? And yet, in the world, we get into this thinking of us and them, right? So often. So often the media is telling us that. 45 does that to me all the time, and I bless him and release him back to the universal good, because it's not for me to worry about that. It's not my job. My job is to show up as the love and let the law do the work. Right? That's really what it's about. So today I want to help us to stop, look, and listen and declare our interdependence. Those are the things I'm looking to do today. And I think I have a slide here, sir. And again. And again. Thank you. So we're going to stop taking things at face value. Right? And then we're going to look for the deeper connection. And we're going to listen to the inner voice. And from there, we'll be able to make our declaration. We'll be able to declare our interdependence. We'll be able to make our declaration of interdependence. So this is what I want to talk about today. So we need to begin by stopping taking things at face value. Okay? So you can move this side. So we need to stop taking things at face value. We need to open our eyes to understanding of our oneness. Would you agree? Because that's what we're constantly having to work on. You know, A minister said to me once that the only thing we're really doing as practitioners in this teaching, and when I say practitioners, it doesn't mean just licensed practitioners who have chosen to do all the education, but any of us who are practicing this philosophy are practitioners of the science of mind, because we're practicing to learn how to have a great life. So what he said to me, and I always remember this, is that the only thing we're healing is our sense of separation. Because we're already one with all of the good in the universe, but when we drop into this body, as beloved Doreen used to say, she would say, when we drop into this body, we forget who we are. And then we spend the rest of our lives remembering. Which is good, though. But when we can realize that that's what we're doing, it makes it so much easier. So what I want to share with you is a slide that I've always found really funny, and it's something that you see in the office, but it's something that we tend to do, right? So notice, this workplace requires no physical fitness program. Everyone around here gets enough exercise, jumping to conclusions, flying off the handle, running their mouths, kicking friends in the ass, and dodging responsibility and pushing their luck. Anybody ever seen that one? We don't need that exercise program here, right? So, but what I want to say is, this is what we need to stop. We need to stop jumping to conclusions. We need to stop flying off the handle. We need to stop running our mouths and start listening. We need to stop kicking our friends in the butt. We need to stop dodging responsibility, and we need to stop pushing our luck. That's what we need to stop. And that's what we're talking about here. So it's stopping these things that we so often tend to do we not? The universe tends to like to, well, I like to say the world shows up to like to remind us to try and do these things, and we have to keep reminding ourselves not to. Right? Thank you. Take that slide. Isn't that a fun slide? I love that. And I've seen that one many times, having worked in offices in the past. So, when we stop all of these things, Ernest Holmes tells us this about realizing the power of the universe. The universe holds nothing against us. We are judged by our own acts, and since we cannot act without first thinking, we are really judged by our own thoughts. Ouch. Right? And then it goes on to say, punishment and reward are automatic. That's just the natural nature of the law. That's why I got to show up as love, right? If I'm showing up as love, I am in a place of open, kind, inclusive, and all of these things. So that's what Ernest is speaking about here. It's like, your thoughts are, every time I make a judgment, I'm creating that in my life. You know, Dr. Ann Martin, who was a Unity minister in my early days in New Thought, she used to say to me, she says, so when you make that judgment, and she said with this lovely little southern drawl of hers, she said, when you make that judgment, just remember that's how it's going to show up in your life. I thought, ouch, that hurts. But she said it in such a sweet way. Bless her heart, right? So Ernest is telling us this. So then we need to stop doing this, because, you know, it brings us back, and I paraphrase scripture on this, but in scripture it says that you will be judged by the very judgment you make. And that's what he's talking about here. That when I choose to judge something, I have chosen to say that is a truth. And when I say it's a truth, what happens? The universe says, it's yours, right? And that's not what I want in my life. So when I can get beyond this place of judgment, then ultimately it requires me to use looking deeper, right? And this is where we move into the look part of the top. So in saying, you know, looking deeper, that looking deeper is from an understanding of our interdependence or oneness. And that's sometimes a tough thing to do in the world, right? There are lots of folks out there who like to remind us we're not one, right? Because we experience duality on this physical level. But it's not the truth. It's not the truth of who we are. So Ernest Holmes tells us people, things, institutions, methods, sciences, philosophies are all good. And And they are all good when we can use them in the right way. From each I shall learn everything that I can, and with deep gratitude acknowledge the good I am receiving. And that's important too, right? To give where we are spiritually fed, or emotionally or consciously fed. So from whatever source, but I am still whole within myself, dependent upon nothing, and yet, this is the big one, and yet always interdependent with all things. So I'm not dependent on anything, but I am always interdependent on all things. And the interesting thing is that, as I was looking for interdependence in the Science of Mind material, this is the only place I could find it, which is Living the Science of Mind. But Ernest Holmes speaks of interdependence without using that particular word. So he understood that idea in its essence. Yes, he was always speaking of that interdependence. Exactly. And yet always interdependent on that, because that's all part of the whole, right? It's all part of the whole. We are all part of that piece of the divine. So I need to see this interdependence in my world, do I not?
Yes.
Because if I can see that, and I call that seeing through the eyes of the divine. Seeing through the divine reality, instead of seeing through the limited human reality, which we have so much of us around us. What is it that Mary Morrissey calls CNN, continuous negative news? I don't even want to go for a synonym for Fox. It just wouldn't be good, so I'm not even going to go there. Or continuous negative news, but that's the world, isn't it? All around us, there's all kinds of things trying to show up. Unless I take the time to redefine this idea and look for my interdependence. If I understand my interdependence, I can look for the good. And I always find it when I look for the good. Have you ever noticed that? When I get myself out of that pity pot and all the stuff that we can get ourselves into, and I start looking within, I can find that interdependence. So part of this redefinition is, I always ask, so how do we redefine this? Well, Ernest Holmes says this: the indwelling God is the greatest single factor in our whole lives. Are we agreed on that here? Yes, right? And it's the God of your understanding. I don't care if you call it a scientific principle, nor does it, just so you know. So, right, the quantum physics, the quantum possibility field. So it means that there is nothing between us and God. There is no intermediary. There is no place to go to find God. God already exists in the midst of us, and if we would try to seek it elsewhere, it would be like God hunting for God, or for itself, right? Be like God hunting for God. God is not lost, and neither are we lost or separated from God. The more completely we are able to see God in everything, the more completely will the one God in all things respond to us. Wow. That's powerful. That is our power in the world, is to realize that the more completely we are able to see God in everything, the more completely will the one God in all things respond to us. That's the namaste that we talk about, right? The divinity or the infinite in me meets the divinity and the infinite in you. And that's what we're talking about here. When we realize our interdependence, we are in our power. Would you agree?
Yes.
When I'm in separation, am I in any kind of power? I'm out of control of my power. I've given it over. So I have to remember this for myself. Would you agree? Each of us has to remember it for ourselves so that we can apply it to everything and everybody in our world. Even those who push our buttons, and I always remind us when we get our buttons pushed that they didn't install the buttons, you did. So you need to disengage that button. And somebody I talked to the other day said, I had zippers put in. And I thought, there you go. And all my buttons removed and had zippers put in. So I thought that was a very clever way of looking at that. So if I want to see all of this in everybody, how do I do it? Well, you know, we've had the book that we've been following this month, which is by the Dalai Lama, and the book handy. Yeah, it's in the bag. But anyway, it's a really great book, and it's talking about a whole world, you know. So it's using this interdependence idea in that way. So when he says in the book of this month, he says, as I often say, we should look from front and back, the two dimensions. From the right side to the left side, 4 dimensions. And from above and below, making 6 dimensions. Which I love a little thing. But isn't it like talking about all these dimensions? So, when we do this, when we take this kind of broader or more holistic perspective, our responses will definitely be more in tune with reality. And you notice, he does a small letter, but Ernest Holmes, when he spells reality, it's always with a capital R, because he's talking about the divine reality, the universal reality, the thing that we talk about. So I love this idea. Do you think that if you take this idea of looking from all 6 different sides, ways of looking at things, that you're going to see a much broader picture, are you not? You're going to see something much greater than what you're seeing when you first go from that knee-jerk reaction of the first sighting of something, right? So I just thought that was just such a powerful comment that he made in his book. That really, I've enjoyed the book. I've actually read the book this month, and I've really enjoyed following the book for February. So, and we do have books for every month, and I'm going to try and make sure that gets out because I don't think it's on our website. So I want to make sure that we have that out there for people because we're going through some amazing books as we go through our monthly messages. So once I get this new perspective, once I start looking for more, now I can listen to the still small voice or the inner voice, right? Because I've done some of that work. I've done some of that superficial work, the top work. So now I can start working on the rest. So we in this teaching have many different varied tools to listen to the indwelling presence. Now, if you're new to this philosophy, which I don't think there's hardly anybody who's new here, and at least once, right? But if you're new to the philosophy and you haven't had the opportunity to take classes, then it is an opportunity for you to grow what Rev Ed likes to call our spiritual mind toolbox. And that's all of the different spiritual tools that we can use when we're trying to practice this philosophy in life. Because there's a lot to practicing this philosophy in life and having that sense of interdependence and oneness. So we have lots of tools for that. But one tool that is available to everyone, everywhere, including our Facebook Live family, is spiritual mind treatment, which is our form of scientific prayer. And so that's available to everybody. Here at the service, after service, you're available to have one moment miracles. For those of you at home, you can go to our website, you can click on the prayer request, or how about this? We have our email for prayer@cslboston.org. How do you like that? So we've got prayer available in so many different ways. So, and that's the important thing. And that's one of the most powerful tools we have in this teaching. It really is. I know it has always been the thing that it's my big go-to is go right to prayer. You know, and it's affirmative prayer. It's declaring and claiming what I desire. It's not begging for something. It's declaring and claiming what I'm worthy of because I realize I am a child of the infinite and I am worthy of receiving all of the good that is out there for me to receive. As long as it's hurting no one and nothing. And it isn't if I'm in that place of being in alignment. So, also in the February's book of the Dalai Lama, he gives us some interesting ideas from the Tibetan Buddhist ideas. And this was in his section called the Process of Transformation section. And he speaks of the 3 levels of understanding. And I love this. So the first level of understanding is understanding derived through hearing and learning. That's that first thing we talked about, right? Look. But it's an understanding derived from hearing and learning or seeing, I would say as well. The second step is then understanding derived through reflection. So I see it, and rather than go to the jumping to conclusions, which we saw earlier, I go to that place of where I take it in. I maybe do a little research so I can learn more, and then take it into reflection. And then the last thing he recommends is that we do an understanding derived through contemplative experience. Now when you say contemplative experience, to me, it's like to take it beyond the contemplative into experience. Because then I move it into the world, do I not? If I'm understanding through contemplative experience, I'm moving into that place where I'm ready to move into the world. Right? So that's another tool we can use. Something we don't necessarily teach in our classes, but we have so many different spiritual systems that offer us opportunities and spiritual tools that we can use, right? That's what I love about being interfaith, is that we can take all of the good, and that's what Ernest Holmes was talking about as well. Thank you. Take that slide down. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to offer you something as we move into the next step, and the next step is to declare our interdependence. And you want to click it now because it takes it a few moments here. So we're going to make our Declaration of Interdependence. This is a video I found which I thought was really, really awesome, and it was done in 2011. And I just want you to watch it, take it in, and get ready for a question at the end of this video.
Truthfully hold.
Self-evident. Alors, nous devons réévaluer les vérités que nous tenons pour acquises. That all humans are
Created equal.
and all are connected.
每个人都是生来平等，并且联系在一起的。
That we share the pursuits of life,
La recherche d'un monde meilleur.
Liberty, food,
Olvida. For our shelter.
refugio,
Seguridad.
education,
And justice.
And hopes for a better future.
That our collective knowledge,
economy, technology,
and environment are fundamentally interdependent.
Carregando a vida.
And what will propel us forward
لأن لدينا شجاعة على التفكير.
is our curiosity.
Our ability to forgive, mampuan kita untuk memaafkan.
our ability to appreciate.
Our courage.
Our courage,
and our desire to connect.
That these things we share.
To our fullest common potential.
Le cose che noi teniamo insieme sono le cose del nostro mondo. 我们应该严肃对待我们的问题。
We should never take ourselves too seriously.
Kwa sababu jambo jingine linalotuunganisha.
dan upaya kita untuk belajar dari kesalahan kita.
So that we can learn from the past.
Understand our place in the world.
Memahami tempat kita di dunia. Use our collective knowledge.
Create a better future.
去创造一个更美好的未来。
So perhaps it's time
Jadi mungkin sudah saatnya kita
That we, as a species,
sebagai spesies, as a species,
Love to laugh.
Que disfrutan de reír.
love to learn,
Bukan pertanyaan.
ask questions, and connect.
do something radical and true.
For centuries,
We have declared
Independence.
这几百年我们一直在宣称独立。
perhaps it's not time.
That we,
as humans, declare our interdependence.
Interdependenza.
Interdependence.
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 So after seeing that, are you ready to declare your state of interdependence?
Yay. Yes.
We declare our state of interdependence. Isn't that great? I found that video, I was just like so moved, and I just said, this is so beautiful. And this is what we need to realize more and more. We need to make a declaration of interdependence. We know we're independent, but we need to really remember that we're interdependent, because that's the power, and that's where we need to be. So what I ask you to remember today, of all that I've said, is to listen. Actually, sorry. We need to look and not jump to conclusions. We need to look for the deeper and the deeper part of our interdependence. We need to listen to the still small voice. And lastly, we need to take our declaration of interdependence. Will you join with me in taking our declaration of interdependence together? I accept.
I accept.
And so it is.
And so it is.
So let's center in, taking a breath from this incredible oxygen, the air that the divine has provided for all of us. We are all breathing the breath of God. So the purpose of this treatment is to know our oneness, our unity, our interdependence with the one who forever is and with each other. God is all life, all love. God is all power, all bounty, beauty, and all goodness. God is the incredible diversity of this planet. All living beings, ecosystems, water, earth, air, fire. God is infinite love, infinite wholeness. And I am one with this power and this presence. I am one with this beauty, this bounty, this life, this presence which is never in absence. And because I am one with this presence, I know that everyone here in the sanctuary, and I know that everyone live streaming is one with the one who forever is. And I declare and know, without a shadow of a doubt, that each one here is now downloading the truth of his or her being. Each one here is anchored in the presence and power of God, love, source, eternal life energy. That each one here is now aligning with the truth of their being, knowing that they are powerful, knowing that each one here is abundant, resourceful, wise, knowledgeable, one, interdependent with the one source and the one power. and that each one here is now expressing a life of opulence and brilliance, peace, harmony, love, oneness, unity, knowledge, and brilliance. That each one here is now divinely expressed, happy, whole, healthy, with divine right to work, opulent, prosperous, abundant, peaceful. I know that each one here is now aligned with their intuitive guidance. They know what to do and how to do it. And everything that they touch is a complete success. I know that the one love and the one power is guiding and directing their every footstep. And that they are one with the one. And in this oneness, they tune into their personal power, revitalizing their body temple and the body of their affairs. How grateful I am. How grateful I am to know that each one present is aware of their inner power, their inner God mind, and that they now consciously create a life of magnificence. How grateful I am that we are all one with the one, interdependent with the one life, the one love, and the one mind. How grateful I am that as we take this charge of knowing who we truly are, this world begins to change for the better. We are the awakened ones. Walking in oneness, living in unity, conscious creators of infinite good and possibility. I am so grateful, and I celebrate the manifestation of this good. I release this word of life, this word of bounty, this word of good into the law of life, into the law of mind, knowing that it returns fulfilled for the highest good of all present and for the highest good of this world. And I end this treatment by saying, and so it is.
Let's join in our affirmation. Today I live as if my life and that of everyone and everything, everywhere depends on it, because it does. Let's say that again. Today I live as if my life and that of everyone and everything, everywhere depends on it, because it does. And that comes to us from Reverend Johanna Janssen from she's the spiritual leader of CSL Graham, and a friend of ours from ministry school. Yes. She's awesome. Yes. So, and I always have to make sure that I drop the J because it's she's from the Netherlands.